So I want to talk a little bit about Cobra Kai. And I want to discuss, this talk amongst the fans that I didn't know about this until recently because I didn't see all of Cobra Kai until last month. And now I'm a fan. But I want to discuss this talk about how Cobra Kai overstayed its welcome. And the topic of the video is should Cobra Kai should Cobra Kai have ended sooner? Meaning, was season 6 or season 5 too much? Should the show have ended around season 3, season 4? Now, first of all, a lot of shows overstay their welcome. There's a ton of shows that I feel throughout history should have ended years ago. The one that instantly comes to mind is The Simpsons. Go back and look at the first 10 seasons or so, usually the first 8, but let's go ahead and give them the first 10 seasons. That era of the first 10 seasons of The Simpsons is almost flawless. I mean, every episode, except for maybe one or two, is very well regarded. When you get to season 11 and 12 is when you start to see a little bit of a sort of downtrend. And by now, to me, this show is unwatchable. In my opinion, I cannot sit down and watch a new Simpsons episode because I feel like it's not funny and it has overstayed its welcome. When it comes to Cobra Kai, even though I have said in my reviews the show kind of went overboard with the lack of realism, especially with season 2 starting there. Once your brain sort of shifts into understanding that this is some kind of alternate universe where kids can break out into fights at any point without really getting in trouble, except for a couple of them. Once you accept that, it's not so difficult to appreciate the storytelling and the characters later in the season. So, logically, there's a few different ways they could have gone with Cobra Kai. I know a lot of people talk about how Cobra Kai was founded on Johnny Lawrence versus Ralph Macchio's Daniel LaRusso, and the story, of course, is sort of the redemption story for Johnny Lawrence, not just with him making amends with Daniel after all these years, but also, getting with Miguel's mom, reuniting or at least uniting Miguel and Robbie, his son and his stepson, and now having a new baby and becoming a businessman and understanding that maybe John Kreese's way was not the way. All of that was sort of built up throughout the seasons. There's multiple times I think they could have ended the show, but instead, the showrunners, John, Josh, and Hayden, decided to go the extra mile. Yes, I feel like if you went back and if you rewrote season 4 to where Miyagi-Do and Eagle Fang win and Cobra Kai goes under, yes, that could have been a logical ending right there in season 4. Like, that could have actually been the end if you write up, maybe you alter the script to where Tori makes amends with Sam and basically all the beef is squashed at the tournament. That could have been a place to end it, but if you end it there, it almost feels like it's too much like Karate Kid Part 3 because once again, Terry Silver's plans have been foiled. Instead, you write it to where Terry Silver pays off the referee. This time, that's his insurance policy to make sure that Cobra Kai wins the All Valley and he can actually expand on his plans from the Karate Kid 3. As a writer, you're almost tempted to go in that direction no matter what because it's something that was foreshadowed, decades ago, literally, and you can actually play with it now. With a TV show, you have more time to develop that story of Cobra Kai taking over the valley. So I think as somebody who likes, and who's familiar with long shows, that makes perfect sense that this time Terry Silver knew he couldn't count on the fighters, just like how Barnes couldn't get the job done against Daniel, even though it was Terry's plan. This time, his plan is, I'm going to pay off the referee to make sure we win. I think that makes more sense. And that's what would lead Tori, with her fighting spirit, to realize that Cobra Kai is not the way because, make no mistake, She hates Sam for the majority of this show, and she wants to beat her clean to humiliate her and get her out of her life, going all the way back to season 2 when Sam accused her of stealing the purses and the money and whatnot. I actually like the fact that the show shifted away from Johnny versus Daniel, because you can only do that for so long. And, obviously, if they were going to only go with that as an option, then that story could have ended forever ago. You know what I mean? I feel like having Johnny team up with Daniel and then not really get along or really understand the Miyagi-Do system, but, eventually they made it work. I think that's actually more development for both of them, because you never thought they would ever work together, and thus that keeps the show interesting. Same thing with what happened at the end of season 4 when Terry Silver got John Kreese arrested. You actually had some sympathy for John Kreese. So has the show jumped the shark? I'm not sure I totally think so. However, I will tell you that I do believe that going past season 6 would have been a mistake. I feel like this season needs to be the last one, and it will be. I mean, it will be. Unless they want to continue the story with like movies and have smaller stories, because I think you can only go so far with these rivalries, and I think ending it here is the wisest thing you can do, because now you are risking jumping the shark. What I mean is there are some chinks in the armor. For example, in season 5, the Miguel Goes to Mexico arc was only 2 episodes. Now, I get they wanted to just move past it and just, sort of further the story of Miguel making amends with Robbie and Miguel accepting Johnny as his stepdad. But that felt like it was going to be a bigger story, and it almost wound up like the writer said, you know what? Let's not harp on this. Let's just move on with the story in the Valley. So that right there sort of felt like maybe they had a cliffhanger at the end of season 4 they weren't really sure about, and they didn't really know how to wrap it up properly. That could be the case. I'm not saying it is, but it could be. And then with season 6, the first 5 episodes, I did consider sort of the weakest 5, but I also put an asterisk there because it's the first 5 of a 15-episode arc, and the stories have not been paid off yet. So by the end of season 6, it could end up being the greatest season in Cobra Kai history if all these storylines are paid off properly and all the characters get a good send-off to close out the show. Having it go past season 6, I think, would drag the show on, because they've built up the Sekai Taikai as the ultimate tournament. What are you going to do, another Sekai Taikai? I guess you could. I guess you could repeat that, but it just feels like it makes more sense to just build up to this huge tournament with all of our lead characters involved, and then while that's going on, pay off some of the other stories like Tori and her connection to Kreese and the whole thing with Terry Silver coming back and what's going to happen with him. There's a ton of things to pay off in the show. But no, I honestly understand people who say, well, season 3 was the best or season 4. I get that. I totally do. I still love season 5 only because of the payoffs and the emotional sort of story there with the characters. I love Amanda LaRusso's arc in season 5. How she goes from not believing Daniel to talking to the girl from Karate Kid 3 who tells her, no, you don't get it. He has a right to feel that way. Terry Silver terrorized this kid. I get it. I get it, and then she got it. But the point is, that was a good arc, because by the end, when Daniel faces off with Terry in the final episode of season 5, the rematch from season 5, episode 5, when Terry beat his ass, and the wife says, do what you have to do. That was a beautiful scene, man. That was her basically stepping down saying, hey, you got to be a man, bro. Kick this motherfucker's ass. And he did. Daniel didn't even get hit once in that fight. That was awesome. That was awesome. So, nah, man, I really like season 5. But again, I agree that dragging it on past season 6 would be a mistake. I totally think that would be the case. And I don't really totally disagree with those who think the show went on too long. It's just that I don't think it has, especially with half-hour episodes. For the most part, I don't think it has. I really don't. There are other shows. The Simpsons I brought up, way too long. Same thing with Family Guy. I think Family Guy peaked ages ago. And it's not the only one. When I was a kid, I felt like Family Matters, the Urkel show, I think that show went on for too long too. Because it got real silly when Urkel was traveling through time with Carl Winslow and shit like that. Like, now it went over the top for me. That to me just got like, it wasn't just like the lack of realism, because that's a dumb thing to say, especially when defending Cobra Kai or acknowledging it. It's more so the fact that you could tell that they were running short on good ideas and that they were trying to stretch it as far as they could. And I don't think those episodes with Urkel and Carl going through time really helped out the characters at all. It didn't evolve them. Whereas in Cobra Kai, season 4 and 5 did evolve them. Plus, we got the greatness of Thomas Ian Griffith playing, once again, Terry Silver and doing a phenomenal job. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on this topic. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to leave a like.